Hello and welcome back to freeCodeCamp's Basic Javascript section. This is add two numbers with JavaScript. Number is a data type in JavaScript which represents numeric data. Now let's try to add two numbers using JavaScript. JavaScript uses the plus symbol as addition operation when placed between two numbers. Example, my var is assigned 5 plus 10. This will assign my var 15. Change the 0 so that the sum will equal 20. So change the 0 so that the sum will equal 20. If I run that, it pass. Subtract one number from another with JavaScript. We can also subtract one number from another. JavaScript uses the minus sign symbol for subtraction. Example, my var is assigned 12 minus 6, which will assign it 6. Change 0 so the difference is 12. That's a hard one. 33. Run test. Did pass. Multiply two numbers with JavaScript. We can also multiply one number by another. JavaScript uses the asterisk symbol for multiplication of two numbers. So here we have my var, 13 times 13, and it is assigned 169. Change the 0 so that the product will equal 80. We can 10. Run test. We did pass it. Divide one number by another with JavaScript. We can also divide one number by another. JavaScript uses the / symbol for division. Example, my var is assigned 16 divided by 2, which will assign my var 8. So change the 0 so that the quotient is equal to 2. That would be 33 here. We did pass. Increment a number with JavaScript. You can easily increment or add one to a variable with the ++ operator. So we have here a variable called I, and we're incrementing it, which is basically adding one to a variable. So this is the same as writing I is assigned I plus 1. Oh, there it is. I is assigned I plus 1. Note, the entire line becomes I++, eliminating the need for the equal sign. Change the code to use the ++ operator on my var. Do that. The hint says learn more about arithmetic operators, increment ++. Basically, we just use it because it's faster than having to write this down. There's also a different way of writing it, which if you click this link, you'll be able to read about. But let's change the code to use the ++ operator on my var. So instead of doing my var +1, my var ++, and it does the same thing. You guys really should read this though, because there is another way of doing it, and that is on this side. But that's all I'll say. And we did pass this one. Let's go to the next one. Decrement a number with JavaScript. You can easily decrement or decrease a variable by 1 with the minus sign operator. So I minus minus is the same as I is assigned I minus 1. Note the entire line becomes I minus minus, eliminating the need for the equal sign. Change the code to use the minus minus operator on my var. So same thing. There it is. And let me just mention something. So this is basically taking my var, which is 11, and subtracting 1 from my var, which would make it 10. If we go down here, we do see my var should equal 10, and it does. So let us continue. Create decimal numbers with JavaScript. We can store decimal numbers in variables too. Decimal numbers are sometimes referred to as floating point numbers or floats. Note, not all real numbers can accurately be represented in floating point. This can lead to rounding errors. Details here, more cool stuff to read, but obviously a computer can only hold so many zeros. JavaScript is not perfect. So if you're using floating point numbers and it's something like, very secure type of app, I recommend you read that. Create a variable my decimal and give it a decimal value with a fraction part. For example, 5.7. So here's our decimal, 5.7. And they want us to create var my decimal and assign to it 7.7. You could put whatever you want. I'm doing 7.7 as long as it has a fractional part. We did pass. Multiply two decimals with JavaScript. In JavaScript, you can also perform calculations with decimal numbers just like whole numbers. Let's multiply two decimals together to get their product. Change the 0 so that the product will equal 5.0. Change that here. Run this. And we did pass. And that just basically multiplied 2 times 2.5, which is 5.0. And since we used floating points, it does return that floating point. If I go down here, it should equal 5.0, which it did. Run test. Divide one decimal by another with JavaScript. Now let's divide one decimal by another. Change the 0 so the quotient will equal 2.2. So change this 0 and make this 4.4. And that should divide it in half, and it should give us 2.2. Pass. We could see down here, variable quotient equals 2.2. Should use the / operator, and that's what we did. And it was only assigned once. Finding a remainder in JavaScript. The remainder operator, which is a %, gives the remainder of the division of two numbers. So here's an example. 5 divided by 2, its remainder would be 1 because math.floor, which will do 5 divided by 2, will make it 2 because that's basically dropping any extras that it has. Math.floor is just going to floor that number. So if it's a decimal, it'll just round down and we get 2. And then we see 2 times 2 is 4, which is what I just said. And then 5 minus 4 is 1, which is our remainder. So 1 is the remainder. Usage. In mathematics, a number can be checked to be even or odd by checking the remainder of the division of the number by 2. So that's one of the reasons you might want to use the remainder operator, and that is to check if a number is even or odd. Next, the remainder operator is sometimes incorrectly referred to as the modulus operator. It is very similar to modulus, but does not work properly with negative numbers. Also, the remainder number, for a more practical reason that you would ever use it, would be like a soda machine that gives you change. It needs to know what the change will be, and using the remainder operator will allow us to know what the change will be. That's just one of the uses. Set remainder equal to the remainder of 11 divided by 3 using the remainder operator. Var remainder is assigned 11 divided by 3, and we're getting the remainder, and that would give us whatever the remainder is. And let's figure it out before we look at it. So 3 goes into 11 3 times. The remainder would be 2. So let's look at that. And there it is. Remainder should be 2. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop this there. We went through a good amount of math stuff. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe if you find these videos helpful. And I'll see you in the next lesson.